Honestly, I think that I was just trying to avoid it, pretending like these issues didn't exist. And then once those issues slap you in the face, you really have no choice but to come to terms with what's really going on. And so I'm just going to be 100% honest. I mean, I remember when the BLM protests began in 2020. Obviously, in the beginning, I was very supportive of those protests, but every night they would quickly devolve into riots. And I remember messaging with friends, even messaging with colleagues about being fearful because, where I live is close to, very close, like walking distance to, a main boulevard where a lot of the rioting took place. And on one hand, here I am in my personal life, seeing the injustice of all of these small, in my community, Latino-owned businesses being completely crushed.
Ana Kasparian got interviewed by a couple of woke soy boys who were trying to press Ana Kasparian and corner her into figuring out why she left the left wing. Why has she started attacking the left wing and exposing all of the nonsense that happens over on the left wing? Because obviously these lefties don't like it whenever one of their own starts exposing their own tricks and their own tactics. And that's what Ana Kasparian has been doing recently. Let's get into this clip here where Ana Kasparian kind of gets cornered. They try to attempt to corner Ana Kasparian for why she's leaving the left wing, and Ana Kasparian just absolutely destroys their attempt to corner her and destroys the woke left in general. Let's get into this clip here where Ana Kasparian takes down this woke soy boy TV host here.
Reform our property and commercial property tax code in California, which people don't know this. We have very high sales taxes, very high income taxes, but like almost a medieval commercial tax property situation with Prop 13. Try to reform that, they call you a racist. So it's like it's taking this language from the social justice left to the point where none of these words seem to mean anything. They're used by the oligarchs, by the people in power. And it took me, I have kind of had an incremental march here from writing for The Nation, writing for kind of more institutional left-wing outlets to, I still have a lot of these values. I have a lot of these beliefs and concerns, but I feel I'm with you. The Unaligned is a great Substack name, by the way, because I feel unaligned. Could you tell me talk a little bit about your journey? Like what were there certain moments where you said, what's going on here?
So a lot of different things happened. And, I think there's this misconception that a few things happened to me personally, and that was all it took for me to, have a reactionary response. And that is not the case. Those personal things that happened to me forced me to come to terms with some very real flaws that I was seeing on the left. But honestly, I think that I was just trying to avoid it, pretending like these issues didn't exist. And then once those issues slap you in the face, you really have no choice but to come to terms with what's really going on. And so I'm just going to be 100% honest. I mean, I remember when the BLM protests began in 2020. Obviously, in the beginning, I was very supportive of those protests, but every night they would quickly devolve into riots. And I remember messaging with friends, even messaging with colleagues about being fearful because, where I live is close to, very close, like walking distance to, a main boulevard where a lot of the rioting took place. And on one hand, here I am in my personal life, seeing the injustice of all of these small, in my community, Latino-owned businesses being completely crushed. They lose everything, right? And of course, there's this BS excuse of, oh, they have insurance.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Who cares, right? Yeah. But no, it's not that simple. Okay. But, watching my own community fall apart and then going on my show, and if I'm completely honest, like terrified of even bringing any of that up because I understood the injustice and agreed that something needed to be done about the injustice toward George Floyd and individuals like him. But I was also terrified that if I brought up things like riots, I would automatically be assumed to be some sort of hateful bigot or racist. And I'm just not. I just see the damage that's being done to my community and communities across the country as all of this is going on. So I dealt with that conflict for a little while, and I felt pretty disgusted with myself because I want to be honest with the audience, but there was also some self-preservation involved because I didn't want people to do to me what they're doing now, actually. And then finally, it just got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. Like, I saw what was happening and I needed to be honest about it. Obviously, things happened to me as well. But more importantly, there was a disconnect between progressive policymakers and legislators and what their constituents wanted. And they just ignored their own constituents. A perfect example is Representative.
Real quick, what Ana Kasparian is saying there is 100% true. And the sad part is about the woke left that she's describing here is that she was terrified to tell even a little bit of the truth, which is the case with all of these people. Like, what Ana Kasparian is saying right here is confirming exactly what I've been saying about people like Destiny and David Pakman and Hassan Piker and all these leftists that Ana Kasparian has been calling out, and that they don't genuinely think the things that they are saying on social media. They don't actually think the things that they're saying to their audience in their videos. I know this, and a lot of you probably know this too. And what Ana Kasparian is saying right now confirms that 100%. David Pakman is not stupid enough to think the things that he says on social media and on YouTube. Same thing with Destiny, same thing with Hassan. They're not that stupid. But they know, number one, if they start saying other things, if they start searching for truth and questioning certain things that the left has been pushing on them, they're going to lose viewership. And also they're scared because they're going to be labeled as sexist and misogynistic and homophobic and all this other stuff, like everybody else is on the right, and Ana Kasparian, anyone who leaves the left. So it's it's this thing where they're completely captured by their audience. The audience capture has completely taken over them. And then you have to make a decision. Do you want to go against the audience capture, go against what your audience wants, which is to exist in this cozy, warm and fuzzy echo chamber and not search after truth? Or do you want to start saying the truth and start asking questions and trying to search for the truth, at the risk of maybe losing your audience and getting labeled as a racist, misogynist, homophobe, all that stuff? Most people would choose to just keep collecting the paychecks, like David Pakman and Destiny and Hassan Piker, all these people, Ana Kasparian, and a little bit of Cenk Uygur too. I don't know how much it was Cenk Uygur kind of being, having his hand forced by Ana Kasparian because she's making too much sense sitting right next to Cenk. It's kind of hard for Cenk to ignore that and continue down the path that, David Pakman and Destiny and them are going down. So we'll give Ana Kasparian most of the credit here. You can either go down the path of David Pakman and Destiny, or you can go down the path of Ana Kasparian and Joe Rogan and Russell Brand and those sorts of people. And I respect it a lot. I respect the fact that Ana was willing to break out of that audience capture, willing to break out of that being scared of what's going to happen if she questions her audience even a little bit. Because whenever that's the case, whenever everybody is too scared to say something, then you get things like the Summer of Love in 2020. And then, the fiery but mostly peaceful protests. And then also, if you think about more recent, you get stuff like people trying to assassinate Donald Trump on live television at a rally. That's what happens whenever everybody on the left is captured by their audience. So they're trying to get more and more woke every single video. Every time they speak, they have to one-up their former self so they can one-up the paycheck. And also the people who aren't trying to do that are too scared to speak out against how crazy they've gotten. That's why people like Ana Kasparian are necessary.
Representative Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. So her district demanded that they do not defund the police. Okay? The Black community said, we don't want you to defund the police. There is a higher crime rate. We are worried about it. We do not want you to cut funding for police. The vast majority of them did not want that. Okay. Ilhan Omar went forward with advocating for defunding the police anyway. And I was just like, okay, well, who are we representing here? Are we actually representing marginalized communities, or are we just representing what our cause believes to be right, despite what those communities desire?
Another example that's even closer to home for you, which is, which I just think is wild, is like, do you remember about a year ago in Glendale, there were all these parents who were protesting the gender curriculum at Glendale public schools, and Glendale is a largely Armenian, but also just immigrant-based community. It's like, probably middle-class immigrants. I did go down and report on it. I didn't take the time to talk to these parents or anything. So this is just casually observing as a news consumer. But whatever you think about their critique about the curriculum, these were just parents protesting what they saw as a as the shortcomings of the education of their own children. And like Gavin Newsom, Adam Schiff represents Glendale, doesn't he? He represents Pasadena and I think part of Glendale.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They're like going on Twitter and calling them fascists and comparing them to Nazis. And I'm just like, it was just, to me, it was like flabbergasting because I was like, these are your voters. Like, and
well, it works though. Like it works. And it doesn't work for us and anyone with a brain, but like, if we just sit back and realize that there's about 50% of the country that completely works on. They don't have to try hard. The left doesn't have to try hard to convince their voter base to continue to vote for them. All they have to do is say, hey, don't listen to that guy over there. He doesn't know what he's talking about. In fact, he's a homophobe and a Nazi. And they're like, wow, that's evil. That's really bad. I need to make sure I don't listen to that guy. Instead of like critically thinking and whenever they're told to label someone as a certain istophobe and thinking, wait, are they actually that thing? They're just like, no, instantly, oh yeah, of course, that person is a homophobe, that person is a fascist, that person's a Nazi, whatever. And they just run with it. They don't have any critical thinking skills. It's crazy, but it's the truth. I don't envy Ana Kasparian or any leftist who has an actual brain or has a conscience and wants to spread the truth and is not able to, because I think, especially the ones who are the OGs, who kind of came up, you know, like Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygur have been doing their show for a really long time. And they came up back when the left wasn't as crazy, nearly as crazy as it is right now. And they've kind of shoeboxed themselves in to this group of crazy people. And if they call out the crazy people for being crazy, they get shunned from the group and they get labeled as these istophobes and their career gets ended. You know? I don't envy that at all. I'm glad I'm on this side where I'm able to call out the craziness, you know, with a free conscience, a clear conscience. And I don't get shunned for it. I don't get called any istophobes for it. For the most part, obviously, I do get called stuff, but it's just like absolute idiots that do it, and it doesn't bother me at all. But I'm very glad to be on this side versus on the other side, because whenever Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygur first started doing their show on the Young Turks, the left wasn't nearly as crazy as it is right now. And it's just unfortunate that now even calling out simple, blatantly obvious facts gets you labeled as an istophobe, gets your career destroyed, gets you shunned from the woke left. It's crazy, but I'm glad we do have people out there like Ana Kasparian who are willing to call these people out. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about these interviewers for they tried to get Ana Kasparian, they tried to corner her, they tried to kind of expose her for leaving the left, and she just absolutely tore the woke left to shreds here. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this whole Ana Kasparian versus this woke TV host situation.